After months of detouring through Malaysia, we found ourselves in a completely different world. One that seems to go unnoticed in the shadow of neighboring countries like Thailand and Vietnam, a place still reeling from a turbulent past, yet still full of the brightest smiles. This is Cambodia, and as cliche as it sounds, trust us when we say it's nothing like you'd expect. Over the next 4 weeks, we're taking you on a journey through this country that is still considered underrated and feels quite special to us. And we're starting right in the capital of Phnom Penh. But before we show you anything, you have to be introduced to this energetic city.
Thank you.
Cambodia's streets are kind of a beautiful madness. 1,000 motorbikes moving as one, a dance with no choreography, no rules, just instinct. A silent agreement between riders, tuk-tuk drivers, and pedestrians who step fearlessly into the current.
So we just arrived in Cambodia. We hopped in a tuk-tuk right out of the airport. Cost us $10. Honestly, we have our bags and it's super early in the morning. So this was like an easy, no hassle option for us.
And it's always amazing to see what they can carry on these motorbikes. But after a short, maybe 20-minute ride, we arrived at our place, unpacked our clothes, and went back out to explore Phnom Penh.
Welcome to Cambodia. As you can see, it's pretty hectic. It's only 8:30 and there's so much traffic out here. But really exciting to be in a new place, so we're gonna do a lot of exploring today and try some new foods and see what else we can find. First stop this morning is the old market. Now this is more of a local market and not necessarily a touristy place, but it's a good way to get a glimpse of what life around here is like in the morning. They sell a lot of fresh produce, so maybe we can find some breakfast and some coffee along the way.
Funny thing about travel, you see things you wouldn't think you'd ever eat. Having now experienced a small section of the world these past few months, I'm willing to try almost anything once. Breakfast in America and Southeast Asia couldn't be more different. Not just the ingredients, but the entire philosophy behind the first meal of the day. In the US, breakfast is often a sugar bomb or a protein-heavy, diner-style feast. Think stacks of syrup-drenched pancakes, sugary cereals, and the classic bacon, eggs, and toast. But in Southeast Asia, breakfast is an extension of everyday street food culture. Savory, fresh, and deeply rooted in tradition. A typical morning might be rice porridge topped with minced pork, or a steaming bowl of noodle soup made with pork or beef broth, fresh herbs, and lime. In Cambodia, breakfast is fast, fresh, and eaten at a bustling street stall. So to start our trip here, we decided to do the same.
Alright, so this morning we found Khoi Tiev, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that horribly, basically noodle soup. It's a pretty popular breakfast around here, so I've heard. Literally just stopped in the first place we could see that looked like it had good food, and it actually is pretty good.
This is very good. It's a huge portion and it was only 6,000 rial. We're just splitting one between the two of us. There's noodles and green onions, and we got chicken, sprouts, and a really yummy broth. And he gave us free tea. Hot. It's like the...
We finished slurping down our noodles and ventured into the heart of the market in search for a Khmer-style coffee. It's similar to Vietnamese coffee in that it's served with sweet condensed milk. It's a rich, creamy, and slightly bitter taste.
It's like almost chocolatey. It doesn't taste like coffee. It's almost like a really specific type of like chocolate soft serve ice cream I had as a child.
So what we're finding out here is the language barrier is a little bit more challenging to navigate in the local markets, which is expected, but we got iced coffee. I think this is the traditional style, and they make it like a Cambodian style coffee, but it tastes like chocolate.
Now, for any Western travelers, Cambodia is going to feel incredibly inexpensive. Case in point, our next stop set us back exactly $1. In a world where $1 barely covers a bottle of water, here it buys you an experience.
Right now we're at Wat Phnom, which is built on the only hill in the city, and it's actually an artificial hill that was built in 1373, I think. Legend has it that in 1372, a very wealthy woman asked all the inhabitants to build up this hill, and then about 100 years later in the 1400s, the city of Phnom Penh was built around it.
The air inside the temple is thick, with the scent of burning incense. Intricate gold statues sit beneath a ceiling painted with colorful murals. Locals come here to pray, light candles, and leave offerings, hoping for good fortune. But just outside, we had an unexpected encounter. Our very first hornbill. And it wasn't alone.
It is a temple site, so I recommend covering your shoulders and knees. I haven't seen anything officially saying that, and I've seen people walking around in shorts and with their shoulders covered, but just out of respect, we're always going to encourage more coverage at religious sites. I did, however, see someone get asked to take their hat off in the temple itself, so keep that in mind. But it's just a very cool spot. It has a lot of shade, which is nice, but there's these big freaking birds.
So we just wrapped up at the temple, and now we're... Look at that.
Whoa.
Getting around Phnom Penh is pretty intense. I mean, just listen to it. At least from what we've seen, there aren't a lot of traffic lights or stop signs, so every intersection is basically like a free-for-all. And then if you want to cross the street, you're basically playing Frogger with a hope and a prayer. What do you think is worse, the driving in Bangkok or Phnom Penh?
Phnom Penh, for sure.
Yeah.
Bangkok, like, there's a tiny bit more order. Here, it's like there's suggestions for traffic, and then if you follow them, you follow them. If not, you don't.
And to be fair to Cambodia, the streets don't seem nearly as crowded as their neighbors.
The men here are very taken with Tony. I feel like multiple times a day, there's a different man coming up and telling him how handsome he is, which I agree, but it's really funny. This also happened in Malaysia too. We officially made it to the Royal Palace, and if you're driving along the river of Phnom Penh, you really can't miss it. It is actually closed from 12 to 2, so we grabbed some lunch. We have like 20 more minutes until it's back open, but this is a complex of buildings that actually serves as the official residence of the King of Cambodia.
We walked a few blocks to find some food, something quick, maybe some fried noodles and some curry soup. But even with the stop for food, we still had time to chill. So let's talk about a little scam that goes on here. And to be fair, this isn't some isolated thing in Cambodia. You'll find it all over Southeast Asia. And it starts with the Tuk Tuk drivers.
So just like with Thailand, be aware of Tuk Tuk drivers. They may even be a little bit more aggressive than in Thailand, but they'll hang out in places like this where a lot of tourists go. Luckily for us, we knew that the Royal Palace will be closed from 12 to 2, but like one of the drivers came up to him and was just like, hey, it's closed till 2:30, which, you know, is part of the scam. They try to get you say it's closed and take you somewhere else that's way further away, so you pay extra money. But that's not the case. We know it's open at 2. Last night I learned a couple of phrases like te and teakon, which I think means no thank you please. I know I'm saying that horribly though. And even with the phrases, it doesn't really help. They'll still kind of follow you around. Some of them are actually kind of nice and they'll strike up a conversation. But with others, it feels just a little bit too aggressive.
It's not the most sinister scam in the world, but it's definitely annoying if you are not expecting it. That said, I get it. People got families to feed, and hustling tourists is just part of the game. But we have no problem giving a little extra to a driver that won't try to hustle us. Anyway, the palace is open now, and we have to go get tickets.
Yeah. Thank you.
Could you imagine having this many people just walk through your yard? Tickets here were $10 a person, USD. Like Tony said, they're closed from 12 to 2. We entered right at 2 and there was still hordes of people. So it's a huge property. It doesn't feel like crowded, but it's definitely not empty. You do need to be dressed appropriately, so shoulders and knees covered. So keep that in mind as well.
This is potentially a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. With all these complexes, which one does the king actually live in? Or does he actually live here at all? I'm sure I can Google that later on, but if you know the answer to that, just leave a comment down below. So the Royal Palace is one of a few different places in Cambodia you can go to get like an overview of the history here. Now the National Museum is right around the corner from here, but we decided to come to the Royal Palace because they both cost $10 a person. So it was a little bit out of our budget to try to do both.
Being midday, we didn't last long in this heat, and after a quick and unsuccessful search for the royal family, we made a stop at a little museum by the exit.
Thoughts on the Royal Palace?
It was interesting. I think the price was a little steep, but I think I'd prefer to go visit temples versus the palace. If you've got extra cash, it's interesting.
We had a few hours before sunset, but our plan was set. We're heading to the famous, or maybe even infamous, Bassac Lane. But until then, we did the only logical thing, kicked back and waited for the sunset.
We were hungry and looking for food, so we made our way to Bassac Lane. Now we got here by ordering a Tuk Tuk through the Grab app. It only cost us 5,800 real, which is like $1.25, which is crazy. But this area is supposed to be famous for the nightlife. So we have two missions: find good food and maybe find some beers.
Bassac Lane is a neon-lit alley of bars and speakeasies that truly come alive at night. And as a surprise to no one, the first thing on our mind is food. So we stopped into Mama Wong's. We kicked things off with the pork and cabbage dumplings, and yes, they were amazing. The texture was perfectly chewy with just the right amount of meat stuffed inside.
They're like my Trader Joe's dumplings, but better.
Then I got stir-fried noodles, and Tony ordered kung pao chicken.
I don't know what to say. It's just good. Like a little bit crispy on the outside, tender chicken. I'll rock with it.
The one downside to Bassac Lane is you'll find more tourist prices here, especially at the restaurants. Still, under $20 for a great meal, it's hard to complain. After dinner, we decided to bar hop and put a little theory to the test. They say you can find beer here for $1, and we're about to find out.
Cambodia.
Like the same face, that's good.
$1 beer. That's pretty good. First beer's down, now for a long journey to our next location. We're here.
We grabbed another Cambodian beer, but this time we switched it up and tried something a little different. A German beer brewed right here in Cambodia, because why not?
It's almost like a shandy tasting.
Mm-hmm.
It tastes like it should be more than $1.
And for our final stop, we had to try Angkor beer, Cambodia's most famous brew. And the best part is that it only set us back $1.50, so cheers to that. 6 beers total, 3 each, for about $8. The price of one in the States. Not bad, Cambodia.
We capped our night with 3 beers and hopped on a tuk-tuk back to our place. We got more to see in the morning, plus we don't need anyone in the comments saying we need an intervention over a couple of beers. At any rate, tomorrow things get a bit more serious. I know it's a bit jarring to go from a high to a low point, but we believe learning the history of any place you visit should be a requirement for any traveler. The fun, the food, the nightlife, it's all part of the experience. But so is understanding what a place has been through. So today we're visiting Tuol Sleng to educate ourselves on Cambodia's dark past, a past that is still deeply felt today.
So we're at Tuol Sleng, also known as S21. This was the genocide center here where basically the Khmer Rogue regime imprisoned somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 people between 1975 and 1979 is when this atrocity happened. And just being here is a little bit of a reality check. As you can see, we opted for the audio tour. It is $10 a person, so $20 for the both of us. If you don't want the audio tour, it's $5 a person. It would have been $10 for the both of us.
Some of the spaces inside, they ask you not to record or take pictures, so we're going to honor that. But even from the outside, in the few areas where photography is allowed, visiting S21 is one of the most sobering and haunting experiences you can have in Phnom Penh. What was once a high school became a torture prison under the Khmer Rouge, where thousands of innocent people were imprisoned, interrogated, and executed. Walking through the empty cells, you see the rusted bed frames, the shackles, and the black and white photographs of the victims. It's impossible not to feel the weight of what happened here.
So that took almost exactly 2 hours of our afternoon. I remember pressing play at 1 o'clock and we exited a little before 3. I would say that this is a must visit in Phnom Penh, not only to understand just the very recent history, which is devastating, but to also pay your respects to what happened here. I think it's definitely worth the money. We visited S21 before the killing fields, which I think is a good order. This gave us a lot of context for when we go to visit the killing fields later this weekend.
It's definitely possible to see Tuol, Sleng, and the killing fields in the same day, but for us, that was just too heavy. So for now, let's fast forward to when we came back out, this time for something a little later, Phnom Penh's night market.
Just across the street from the river and probably a block or so from the old market is the Phnom Penh night market. Now, this is supposed to be a really good place for cheap food. So this is where we're gonna try to have dinner tonight. We got here right when it opened, so it's a little sleepy right now. Hopefully it picks up a little later. Like the other markets, you can also buy clothes and other items here. Or if you wanna just hang out for a couple hours, they have little mats you can sit on. I think you might have to order food first, but it's probably pretty cheap.
Things started to pick up as the sun began to set, so we grabbed one of those mats and started trying to figure out our next meal.
Been practicing for this moment. See how long I last like this. It's a lot more comfortable than it used to be though, so I think I'm okay. Sarah, on the other hand, makes it look easy. So Sarah got pad thai with chicken, I got the fried noodles with chicken. Each one of these I think was about 10,000 Riel, plus 2 mango shakes, which was 8,000. Hot.
The night market is packed with food stalls, each offering a slightly different version of the same thing. But the way I see it, you really can't go wrong. Just pick one and roll the dice. In the end, I guess it all comes down to how it's made and who's making it. Anyway, we browsed through some clothes at the market and walked back to our hotel. Tomorrow we visit the killing fields and it's a heavy day ahead. And it's one we want to be mentally prepared for.
Okay, $6 per person. Include audio guide.
Thank you.
Where are you from?
US?
Next one get audio.
Yeah, thank you.
For the next part of this video, viewer discretion is advised. So we made our way to the killing fields. We wanted to do S21 and the killing fields on different days because obviously the topic is a little bit heavy. And the killing fields is kind of difficult to get to. It took us about an hour to get here from where we were staying in Phnom Penh. But like we were saying yesterday, if you go to the Genocide Museum, you should also come here. This is not an easy place to visit, but if you do want to visit, for foreigners, it costs $6 a person. And that also includes an audio tour that you get with it. The first stop on the grounds is a pagonia housing the skeletal remains of the victims who were unearthed from the fields. We won't be filming much here either out of respect, but I wanted to show this part because hearing about atrocities like this is one thing, but actually seeing the sheer number of victims puts it into an entirely different perspective. So every time I try to think about just how recently all this happened, it's kind of hard to wrap my mind around it. Like, this was just over 40 years ago. Me personally, I didn't learn this in high school. I don't know if you learned anything about this in high school. Like, I didn't even know about this. And then now I'm looking up past events and trying to figure out just what exactly happened here. And it's just crazy to me that stuff like this isn't taught. Like, not even just, and I don't want to like bottle just this one instance, but not even just this genocide, but a lot of genocides that happen in the world aren't taught in our schools, especially in the US. So I think this is an important part of history that everyone should know.
Phnom Penh wasn't always easy. It was eye-opening, challenging, and at times heavy. But that's what travel is supposed to be. Not just a highlight reel, but a way to push yourself and to understand a place beyond what's on the surface. We came here for the food, the energy, and the adventure, but we're leaving with something more. A deeper appreciation for Cambodia's resiliency, its people, and its history. And the best part, we've barely even scratched the surface. There is so much more of Cambodia to explore, from the ancient temples of Angkor Wat to quiet countryside villages and hidden beaches. So this isn't goodbye because it's just the beginning. We'll see you in the next one.